Greetings. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Plot Mhako, and welcome to earGROUND, New Voices Amplified. And for a while now, we've been tracking down one amazing project. Amazing why? Because it features some of Zimbabwe's finest voices and one of Zimbabwe's biggest producer, or one of the best producer to ever emerge from Zimbabwe. I'm talking about Rhymes. And the project is called Pungwe Session, Volume 2. There was a Volume 1, and we're going to be speaking to the brains behind this initiative, Chard, who is a blogger, who is a content producer, and so many things. Greetings, Chard, and welcome to earGROUND.
Thanks for having me, man. I wouldn't say brains, but but yeah, it's something that I'm passionate about. But yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Great, great. It's quite interesting that I'm having an interview with you. You're on the other side of the mic and the camera, but you, for a very long time, have been doing this. You have been blogging before we even knew what blogging was about. I think I had to look up the word first because I was doing my journalism, but blogging was something completely new. But you're already ahead of the time. Africa Hip Hop Magazine, a hip hop blog, and you have done so much work as far as media is concerned. Two broke keyboards you had done. You created that podcast series, and one of the most amazing projects that I've seen media-wise in Zimbabwe, because you've captured some of the super, super interesting moments, interviews, backstage access, and so much. Could you tell us just a bit about your journey, future? You grew up in Mutare, and how did you get yourself involved in all of this?
Yeah, M Trey all day. Got to shout out Mutare. I've always just been around creators. Always been creating. I remember back in high school. This was like Form 1, Form 2. I always used to hang around guys that were making music. In fact, even before that, I remember there was this man called Raymond Singh, Mr. Singh in Mutare. He had a studio. My sister and my cousin used to go to that studio to record music. I used to go hang out there. There used to be this DJ from Sweden. I forget his name, but he used to make mixtapes back when mixtapes were a thing. Like he'd get all the latest music and start compiling. And I just used to be mad interested in that stuff. And then I started doing the same. I remember my mom bought a PC. Then I saved up, started doing some hustles. I bought a CD writer, started burning CDs, started making mixtapes, started DJing in high school. And then around Form 4, Technique came to my school, and he had just come back from America. And then I started hanging around with Technique, just hanging around him in the studio, seeing the creative process, helping him shoot his videos, just basically being the dude who was always around creative. So I always knew that was something I wanted to do. It was just finding where I fit in the best.
Wow, great. But then the one project that put you on the map was the Africa Hip Hop blog, right? How did that whole project came about?
So initially, the African Hip Hop Blog was actually a website called 25 to Life, and it had been started by Ross Hagen, who was managing 25 to Life. For those of you guys that remember, 25 to Life was a hip hop collective that was basically a super group of mob movers and a bunch of other Mutare rappers. And they dropped the 25 to Life mixtape. If you guys remember that, it had DJ Pee Wee, it had Spaceman, who's now doing big things in South Africa. It obviously had Sub Z, it had Sniper Kid, and Metaphysics, and then Inspector Deck from the Wu-Tang Clan.
Wow.
And so the whole emphasis was there was just like collaboration, and all these guys were mainly at Rhodes University, wanted to make music, and they printed CDs, and then those CDs quickly sold out. They printed like 1,000 CDs, and then those sold out immediately. So they needed some way to distribute the album. And then Ross, who was studying computer science at the time, had the idea, you know what, let me build a website to host the stuff. And that was the first iteration of that. And then obviously after that music, that mixtape dropped, Sniper Kid would release music intermittently, but then other artists were hitting up Ross and saying, "Yo, I've got my music. Why don't you host it on your website?" Because they had no place to distribute it.
Yes.
So eventually, the 25 to Life website not only became a platform for 25 to Life artists, but like just African artists in general. And by the time I hopped on, it was Ross, it was Twambo, and then myself. And then we just figured out that, okay, we've got something here. Let's try and build on it. And it grew pretty quickly, man. Like we ended up, I think when I hopped on, we're doing like maybe 3,000 uniques. And in that time, 3,000 uniques, like, wow, we got 3,000 people. Wow. And then within a year and a half, we're doing 1 million uniques. And we're reaching artists from all over the continent, artists in the diaspora. It was literally at that time one of the very few platforms where artists could submit their music and they felt that they were getting good reviews because we were really about the music. So we were making sure that we were curating and highlighting the best African hip hop at the time. So yeah, man, it went from strength to strength, man. It was a great ride. Obviously, we won best blog in Africa at the African Hip Hop Blog Awards, African Blog Awards rather. We finished second the year following that. That was 2016, 2017, and I got to see a lot of places. We traveled all across the continent, spoke with a bunch of artists, and it grew from a passion project to what became a really big, impactful thing. You know.
And talking about that, what are some of the moments that you'd say were the highlights of your experience with the Africa Hip Hop blog? Were there specific interviews or specific artists that you would say interacting with them somehow impacted on your career so much?
Man, there's so many. I think um ultimately, like, the blog was never a commercial enterprise. It was never designed to be. So from the jump, it was always losing us money. We lost a lot of money doing that blog, but we had an amazing time. And I think what kept us going was just like encouragement from fans and encouragement from the artists. I remember Jabba, for example. I'd
Yes.
been bumping into Double HP at festivals and events for almost 3 years span. And then there's one time at Back to the City, he pulled me aside and he's like, "Yo, dude, don't you stay in Zim?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Why is it whenever I'm at an event, like I always see you?" And I explained to him, like, "Yo, this is what I love to do." So he's like, "Wait, so how do you make money?" And I was explaining to him, "No, I use my money to fly out, I record, blah, blah." And he told me, "Okay, you know what, dude? I respect your hustle. This is my number. Give me a call tomorrow. Come to my house. I'm going to give you the best interview you've ever had in your life."
Wow.
And we went there and we literally hung out with Jabba for damn near the whole day. And he did give us the best interview I had in my life. In retrospect, like, he ended up like, taking his life a few months after that. And we were working on a documentary. We're going to include that interview in a documentary. Yeah. So part of that interview, we never released it. And then, like, the parts we did release, there's one part that went very, very viral. To the point where I think Jabba even got hold of me and was like, "Yo, I actually regret saying this." Wow. But I think those moments really powerful and impactful because it just shows that what we are doing, it has an impact. You know what I mean? And I've been places. I remember this one time I got a call from someone who runs the Library of Congress, the African Department of Library of Congress in America, and she was like, "Yo, I'm referencing one of my academic papers on some of the work you guys have done," and that was like, wow, people way over there actually care about the stuff we're doing. And sometimes you get calls from label heads who don't like the album review, and you're like, "Wait, this person reads this?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are the memories. Like, just knowing that the stuff that you write when you're in your bedroom or late after work reaches so many people and impacts so many people. That's dope.
And the Africa Hip Hop blog stopped, but is there a hope that we're gonna see it coming back? Is there a possibility?
Nah. I think for me that chapter's gone. If I do start blogging again, which is very likely, but it's not going to be confined to just hip hop. And I think the business model has started making sense now. I'm getting old, you know. I can't afford to keep eating losses for the sake of eating losses.
Yeah.
So it's got to make business sense. But that's the thing and I think you're also seeing it as well, is making good content is expensive. It's time consuming.
True.
And a lot of people aren't willing to pay for good content, which is a very big problem we have on the continent. So it's now trying to figure out, how do I balance that out? Like, how do I make sure that I'm making good content that is impactful, but I'm also paying my bills because I've got responsibilities. So that's what we're working on now. And I found a few ways to work around it, via my company, for example. And that's a model we're exploring. So Pungwe Sessions is actually an example of that. It's like making good content, but also something that's not running me dry in terms of finances, and also having a direct impact on creatives and making sure that they're elevated and they're celebrated and they can also start feeding their families.
Great. Now you're running Point Black Africa. This is the
Yeah,
company
yeah.
that partnered with ZGS, the
Mm-hmm.
Zimbabwe German Society Good Institute in Harare, to create um, the project that we want to talk much about, Pungwe Sessions Volume 2, right? But before we
Mm-hmm.
really get into that, there was Pungwe Sessions Volume 1. How
Mm-hmm.
successful was the project? And um, what then necessitated the second project?
In terms of success, it's hard to gauge because when we went into it, we didn't have any like goals. We just wanted to make music. At the time, we did, through Technique as well. I remember I was in the studio with Technique and he got a bunch of beats, the dope sounding beats from Rhymes. And I asked him, "Yo, where'd you get these beats from?" And he explained that, no, this is a guy called Rhymes in Zimbabwe, and I've been speaking to him on social media, and he's doing work with Tiny Temper and a whole bunch of other UK acts. And that's the time Pass Out had just started come out, had just come out, and Tiny Temper was really starting to take off. And I was like, wow, that's a big move, you know? So let me interview him for the African Hip Hop blog. And I did. We had a great interview, and then we just kept in touch. And then a couple months down the line, Rhymes got hold of me and was like, "Yo, Phil, I really want to do a project with Zimax, but I don't know like how the best way to go about it. And it seems like you would be the guy to speak to on how to make it happen." And it was literally just a spur of the moment decision. We're like, okay, let's do it. We brainstormed some names. Pungwe Sessions was the name. Did up the graphics. We had an open call. He sent me a bunch of beats, and I just started like reaching out to artists, like saying, "Yo, I've got this project I'm working on. Do you want to be on it? Here's some beats." And then that's what happened.
Wow, awesome. And talking about the selection of the artists, how did you guys pick them up? Because I look at, um, when you see Silent Mo and you
Mm-hmm.
see SF, and then there's Pumako, there's what's his name, Jeezy, and
Mm-hmm.
so many artists that are on that project. There's about 12 or 13 artists, and I'm looking at how you managed to really put them together for such a project, considering that all these artists are actually doing super amazingly well within their own different genres, and they're coming like from different backgrounds. But to have them on one project, I'm trying to imagine that possibly this could have taken you months to put everybody together to produce the music and release it. How did you
Months.
guys do it?
That well, specifically you're talking about Punga Sessions Volume 2. That didn't
Yes.
take months. That took us weeks. What had happened was so I had been speaking to a couple of organizations, and I basically said we did Punga Sessions Volume 1. Um, for what we did, we think it was successful because on basically zero budget, we funded Rhymes and I everything on that project. Rhymes and I funded ourselves.
Wow.
Obviously, I've got to give a shout out to B Sun who helped record some of the songs. I've got to give a shout out to FTR and Abnorm, who also helped with some of the mixing and mastering. But for the most part, that was literally Rhymes and I putting our money together, traveling, etc., making sure like Rhymes flew down from the UK on his own dollar to record to help finish up that project. At the time, I was staying in Mutare. I was traveling back and forth. So we understood that okay, without some sort of financial injection, we can't really make a sustainable project. We need money. We can't just fund it ourselves. And the way we structured the project and the way we wanted to structure the project, we knew that it wasn't going to make sense for us to do it as a legitimate label because we want the artists to benefit. If the artists are benefiting, we've got to give them the rights to the music so that when it's being distributed, they are earning revenue from that. You know what I mean? So we approached a few organizations with that idea in mind. ZGS came back to us and they're really for it and they were keen on it, but then there was some issues with the RBZ, if you remember, with
Yes.
last year with regards to payouts and so forth. So what was supposed to be initially be a year-long project, it was put on hold for a bit, and then eventually they came back to us towards the end of the year and they were like, the government has relaxed some of these restrictions. We can still fund, but we need to now do this in 3 months. And then we're like, okay, cool. But then Rhymes was only available like the last week of September. He had studio sessions throughout September and in October. So that literally meant we had to put the whole project together in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so I love a challenge. I was like, let's do it. Just started hitting up all the artists I know. I recruited my boy Dan. to help me out recruiting artists. And we literally just recruited all the artists we know and all the artists we felt would be dope for this project, like artists we had been keeping an eye on. Um, Ideally, what we would want to do is like an open call and a vetting process so we'd get more young and unknown acts on the project, but we just didn't have the time and the resources to do that. So it was really just hitting up all the artists that we felt would be dope. And some artists heard about the recording sessions and just pitched up. And if you're lucky to get past the gate and you're lucky enough to show that you belonged in the studio, you got on a song. So like shout out to people like Chingeto. Chingeto literally heard about the project and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be there." And she came in with
Wow, for
Amara.
real.
And while Amara is recording, she's busy humming and writing. And I'm like, okay, you seem to know what you're doing. Hop on a song, let's see. And bam, she
Wow.
did do anything in like 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. So that's literally how it came about. And we try to keep it as organic as possible. So lots of artists were there. Not a lot of artists ended up on the project. There were a lot more artists who were just in that studio, in that vibe, who were adding to the atmosphere. So even though they didn't make the project, they helped like create the environment that made the project so dope.
Wow. Great. And
Mm.
the project dope. Now the project is out, right?
Hmm.
Um, are you happy with the final product? Are you content with what came out
In terms of the album,
in terms of the album?
um, when I went into this, my goal was to make an album as good as or better than Chamembe. I
Awesome.
think I think I think we've done that. I don't think there's any skippable songs in that project. I don't know. Do you think? Do you?
No, I loved it. I loved it, and I'm still
Mm,
listening to it.
mm,
And what's interesting from my own perspective is that I'm today I wake up and I'm like, okay, the track with Jeezy, that's my track. And then the next day I'm
mm,
thinking, you know what, I think is the track with Natty or, so it's really quite interesting because there's so much diversity in that track. There's so much richness. I think
mm,
what I picked is that one element that I find missing in a lot of the music in Zimbabwe, which I also found uh, quite, you know, very interesting to see that the A&R still
mm,
exist. You know,
mm,
in a lot of the music that we're finding on radio today, it just comes from the producer who records, at times
mm,
mixes and masters alone and sends everything to radio or on the streets and then it blows up. But when I look
mhm,
at this project, I look at there was a lot of effort in terms of really creating and curating the content to a certain level where you could play it in Madagascar, you could play it in Germany, and you could still say, wow, this is great music without necessarily saying, okay, uh, where is this sound coming from, that kind of a thing. So I think the effort was really commendable.
mm,
It was great. And also to see the amount of talent that is there. I think this is what happened with Chamembe, with Chikutiro, with The Future, that a lot
mhm,
of the artists that blew up afterwards came from that project. The same with Zim Danso, Zimbo Flavor, and Body Slam, that they were the
mm.
two regions that really
Yeah.
became sort of the plug, which was great. And are we going to see any visuals coming from the project?
Well, I'm working on it. So as it stands, like anything that's going into the project now, it's either funded by myself, it's funded by Rhymes, or it's funded by the artists. So Corona has put a dampener on a lot of the quote unquote disposable income I wanted to invest into this project.
Yes.
But we're definitely working on it, and working with the artists because at the end of the day, this isn't my project. This isn't Rhymes' project. It's everyone's project. And if you look at the credits, you'll see that every artist has equal
Good.
footing, which is why like the album artist is Pungwe Sessions because the Pungwe Sessions is just the concept of bringing Zimbabwean acts together. You know what I mean? Obviously, Rhymes is the main producer, but he's not the main artist, and we don't want artists or anyone else to feel that we're trying to take credit. It's just an idea we had, and we're trying to make sure that every artist has equal share. So even on the back end, every artist is an equal stakeholder in that album. So it's all of us coming together and figuring, okay, guys, we've got this product now, we've got it made. How do we blow this up? Like, how do we work it? So we're all working behind the scenes, figuring out, okay, what's the best way to promote it? How can we shoot visuals? Um, who can we approach? Who can partner with us? Stuff like that. So that's what we're working on right now. Is just like finding partners, but also it's difficult because of the lockdown restrictions. But we're
Yes.
definitely working on something. Trust and believe there's going to be visuals. A lot of those songs, they deserve visuals because I think some of them are some of the best songs to come out of Zim in a very long time. So we're
Yeah.
definitely going to do our best to try and work them. Definitely.
That's great. That's great. And working with Rhymes, how was the experience? Considering that is one guy who has worked with some of the biggest artists that you can imagine, but now he came down to Zimbabwe and he's working on this project with possibly some artists that have not had much of like really a lot of sort of professional handling in a way, without stereotyping. But I'm just talking about where you really work with somebody who's a bit uh, exposed and well versed with how the industry works and stuff. How was it working with Rhymes?
From my end, it was a dream. And Rhymes is a workaholic. Like I think I work hard. And then I met Rhymes. I was like, yeah, I don't work hard. I would leave the studio midnight, 1 a.m. every night and come back maybe 9, 10 a.m. the next day. By the time I got there, Rhymes had already done another beat or started recording with someone else. So I think he was maybe sleeping on average 3, 4 hours a night. You know what I mean? And a lot of the artists that were in the studio were also like, yo, I really appreciate working with him because not only is he giving them like valuable feedback, like maybe say this here, maybe do this here, let's change this here, that type of thing, but also just seeing the work ethic and understanding like this is the work ethic you have to reach that level of success. You know what I mean? It's not by fluke, it's not by chance. He's talented, yes, but he's also an extremely hard worker.
Right. And you coming from Mutare, a place where there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of talent. We have just seen what Shasha has done. She has broken record.
Mm. Yeah.
Congratulations to Shasha. And how do you feel about that?
It's dope to see, man. It's dope to see. We got a chance to sit down with Shasha a couple months ago, and we're discussing just how dope Mutare is. Like, there's so much dope talent out there, and talent that we came up with. Like I mentioned, Technique. I still believe Technique is one of the best Zim rappers ever.
I, I believe
Um,
so.
I've worked with a bunch of dope guys. Sadly, because of Zim being what it is, a lot of these guys end up getting day jobs. Like they had to feed their family somehow. But there's a lot of creativity out there. There's a lot of talent. Um, it's just a lack of opportunities, a lack of places to perform. Like as you know, like there's really nowhere outside of Cultural Theatre and Beethoven. There's nowhere else for like artists to go to perform.
Yeah.
There's no real music studios. I'm not even sure if like Mr. Singh, for example, if he still has his music studio. You know what I mean? So the sad thing is a lot of us from Mutare have to leave Mutare to find success. Like there's me, I had to leave Mutare. Shasha had to leave not only Mutare but Zimbabwe. You got Michael Chunda, he had to move to Harare. You know what I mean? So it's a sad story, but I think it's emblematic of what's going on in Zim in general. Like artists outside of Harare really struggle to find a platform to earn money and to work their art.
Right. But having worked on this kind of a project, Pungwe Sessions, that
Mm-hmm.
had artists coming from different parts of the country, did you involve or consider any artists or talent from Mutare apart from you?
So yeah, we had a limited budget, so we tried to make sure that we reached out to as many artists as we could. So we made sure we had ASAP there. We literally flew ASAP in just for his session. We made sure like Michael was there to represent Mutare.
Okay, great.
Um, so in future projects, if we ever do them, which we hope we will, we'll definitely have a if we have a longer call out process, that'll give us the opportunity to really make sure that we get artists not only from Mutare, Gweru, Bulawayo, Kwekwe, Kariba, Vic Falls, because
Yes.
weirdly enough, Rhymes is from Kariba. Rhymes was actually born in Kariba, and he went straight from Kariba to the UK. So you can imagine that there's probably another 2 or 3 rhymes just in the pockets, waiting to have their talent celebrated. So yeah, we definitely want to start bringing out a more up and coming artists. But with this one, we also wanted to make sure that had them with established artists because that then elevates the brand. Then going forward, we can start making sure that we also help younger artists come in.
Great. Going forward, are we gonna see Pungwe Sessions Volume 3?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Obviously, I'm still working volume 2.
Yes.
But volume 3 is definitely going to happen, and we're going to have a lot more collaborative projects in the works, not only with Rhymes, but with other producers, with other artists. We're just trying to find the best way to do it, and especially find ways for Zim artists to make money. The important thing here is making dope music is great. It's all fun and dandy. But if these artists aren't paying their bills, if they aren't able to build on this, if they aren't able to build sustainable careers and valuable catalogs, then I don't think I've done what I want to do. What I want to do is make sure that every artist on this project, um, for as long as possible, they are receiving checks for Pungwe Sessions. And if that happens, I've done my job.
Wow. That's so great. And now, if we're going to talk about making money, you have
Mm-hmm.
done a lot of work that involves digital content. You have done so many trainings, workshops, and you have spoken at so many platforms about digital content and stuff. And this is a very topical issue right now in Zimbabwe. People are
Mm-hmm.
struggling because of COVID-19. People are locked up, and everybody's getting an awakening towards, oh, we
Yeah.
need to have our content online. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in one line, what do you think needs to be done in Zimbabwe to really correct this and be able to create something that helps artists to gain the knowledge and be able to monetize their content?
The key is education. Artists just have to educate themselves. Funny you mention it. I'm working on a series of educational workshops and books like that are gonna specifically be for artists,
Great.
and I'm gonna have like sample contracts. So taking an artist from writing the song to recording to distribution, this is what you should do. This is how you make sure your rights are not being violated. This is how you make sure you're collecting your royalties. So that's what I'm working on now. And it's sad that it took a pandemic for artists to realize this, but for a very long time, I've been speaking about the fact that
Yes, true.
artists should not be releasing music for free. Your strategy cannot be live performances because you now put yourself at the mercy of circumstances. Right now, because of Corona, you can't perform. If you get ill, you can't perform. When you get old, you can't perform. And when any of those things happen, does that mean that you stop making money? That you shouldn't be able to feed your family? But people will still be enjoying your music. You know what I mean? So it's important that artists educate themselves. Right now, there are resources available. If they can, just start Googling, start doing some research, start doing some reading. But I'm also going to be working with a bunch of industry professionals to produce specific content for Zimbabwean artists so that they understand what needs to be done and the process from writing all the way through to distribution.
Wow. Thank you so much. We'll keep our ear on the ground for that. I think that will be great, definitely, because I remember having a conversation with one creative. He says, look, we're not documenting our stories. We're not creating books that are customized, that are tailor-made to suit where we're coming from, because our circumstances are slightly different from maybe
Mm,
elsewhere. But if we have our
mhm,
own local books being made, then people can even relate better. I can sort of quote out
mhm.
or pursue sport, and then they're reading this in a book. That will definitely go a long way. Yeah, I really
Definitely, definitely.
appreciate. And two Broke Timbers is still
Hmm.
running, right?
Definitely, definitely. We just dropped a bump episode last week. Go hit it on the website right now, tubertumbers.com.
Great. And
Mm-hmm.
um, 5 years from now, where do we see Point Blank Africa, or where do we see Future?
Same place. I think just doing it at a bigger scale. Our goal is to tell African stories in an African way and find solutions to African problems using digital content. So that's what we're going to be doing. This is just the beginning. We just want to expand our footprint across Africa and make sure that Africa's stories are being told, being documented, and African artists are benefiting from it. Right now, we see a big influx from the West investing in African art. You
Yes.
see Def Jam Africa opening, you see Universal Music opening offices across Africa, Sony Music doing the same thing. It's right now is the time, like everyone's eyes on African content. Everyone wants African content because it's the new thing. And it's very important that artists educate themselves now so that they are in a better position to leverage the intellectual property. If we miss this opportunity, it's going to be a problem. We're going to end up having the same stories that we've been having for the past 100 years, where artists make these mega hits and don't see a cent from it because they didn't understand their rights were being violated. So it's really important that artists educate themselves now.
Wow. Thank you so much, man. I
Mhm.
really appreciate it. I hope to actually have one specific edition when we're talking about some of these things, because it's quite profound. You talk about um, the interest from the outside towards our local content, where we shun, we just ignore our own content until somebody comes in and invests and takes it away, and then we're like, oh wow, that is our own content, and we don't have any intellectual rights towards that content, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't make money out of it. So it's quite interesting to have this kind of a conversation, and I hope it's a conversation that the younger generation of artists will be able to pick up and um, get some wisdom and be able to be more informed when they enter into contracts.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it's really important, especially from the consumer side. Like, guys, if you can support African music, pay for African music, support these artists, especially now, as you mentioned, these artists are not performing. If you consider yourself a fan of whoever is a Zimbabwean act, ask yourself, have I paid them in any manner, shape, or form? Even if it means DMing them and saying, yo, I love your album. How can I send you money? Please, please do that. Especially with Pungwe Sessions as well. If you can, please, please, please. I know a lot of Zimbabweans don't have access to all the paid streaming platforms, but if you have internet, even just stream it on the official SoundCloud page, because those streams pay the artists. Please, if you can, watch it on YouTube. Those streams pay the artists. Do not download it illegally. Please, we are begging you. Support these acts, because especially now, without the opportunity to perform live, they are really struggling financially. So support acts however you can, and especially support them with your pocket. If you have money to spare, make sure it goes directly to that artist. Do what you can to support African artists, especially Zimbabwean artists.
Wow, great. Supporting Zimbabwean artists, how can people access Pungwe Sessions? Which platforms can they go on?
Every platform, wherever you find music legally, any legal any legal music platform, it's there. So Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, Jukes, um 10 Cent Music, QQ Music, YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever there are legal streams available, the album is there. Obviously, if you do have a paid streaming account, please stream it on your Apple Music, on your Spotify ATCs. But if you don't, SoundCloud is there as well. YouTube is there as well. Please, just stream and support.
Wow. Stream and support. That's the message from Future. I've been speaking there to Future, who is a content creator, a blogger, and he's so many things. An entrepreneur. He runs Point Black Africa, which is a company that is working with a lot of creatives, creating creative content from Africa based on African narratives. And thank you so much, Ben, for this special interview. For me, it's really an honor to have you on earGROUND, because I'm admiring what you've been doing, and I've been learning so much from what you guys have done. And I remain a student of the game. And stay safe.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate it, man.
Great. So to everybody who's been watching, I've been speaking there to Featured. Stay tuned. And to access the Pungwe sessions, I'm going to drop the link in the comment section. I'm going to also drop it in the bio so that you'll be able to see it. And also on screen, you'll see a bar with the title of the project. And you can just look it up. You see all the artists that are out there, 13 artists from Zimbabwe, and an amazing producer. Simba Takes also featured on the same project. Rhymes was behind the whole production, and Zimbabwe German Society supported the project in partnership with Point Black Africa. And thank you so much for watching and supporting earGROUND.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Great.